Hello, students. Welcome to the reading room. And I am Dr. Annette Feravich, and I am the teacher here in the reading room. And we are starting a new book. I am so excited about the book. It is Who is Jane Goodall? And just put those books. Seriously? Oh, right back here. All right, so this is not, but this is a video I got. Remember I told you I got over 100 books for $46 from the library. So to look for library sales because they are awesome. So I did get the Civil War, which I'm going to watch. This must have been Virginia's. Although my son has got, but it's a World War II series is what he's got that I gave him. I wouldn't mind seeing that series either. It was a really, really good series. But I'm not that much into war series, no matter what. But I am into these books that I got. So this is part of a series. I got lots of little pockets of series. So this series is called, it's the Who HQ is what it says. Who HQ, right back here. Who, what, where. Your headquarters for history. Who HQ. So you can see it back here, right there. All right. And so look at all the books I got. So I got Jane Goodall's book here. I'll put that in the front so you don't, you can see the other ones. But so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So here are 9 of my books. I probably got these for like, I don't know, all 9 of them for probably 10 cents. Who even knows? Yeah, because I put it in a bag for $2 for the whole entire bag. So for all these, 10 cents max is what I really did pay for them. So I'm excited about these books and look at how nice they are. So Booker T, who is Booker T. Washington? Who is Helen Keller? And I'm going to try and read these as the timelines come up for my, and sometimes in history class. Bookless classroom. Who is Rosa Parks? Who is Albert Einstein? What was the March on Washington? Who is Thomas Alva Edison? Who is Neil Armstrong? Who is Marie Curie? Yeah. And now, who is, and I just looked it up, and she is still alive, born in 1934. She is 89 years old, is what Wikipedia told me. Jane Goodall. Now, I knew her story when I was little, but only like a 1-sentence story about her. But I did know her story. Actually, I saw a couple of videos because I used to have videos out there, the actual videos that she took. They used to have them like on Mutual of Omaha's United Kingdom or something like that. Animal Kingdom. Wide World of Sports. Something like that. So let's get to it, shall we? I don't know how far we're going to get. I mean, we'll get there in 15 minutes or so is what we're going to do. So who is Jane Goodall is where we start. And so this book is by Roberta Edwards. And I think I pronounced it Roberta Edwards, and illustrated by John O'Brien. So there's some of John O'Brien's illustrations. When Jane Goodall was little more than a year old, her father gave her a toy animal. It was a soft and cuddly puppy or kitten or bunny. It wasn't a soft and cuddly puppy or kitten or bunny. It was a big chimpanzee. I gave my kids monkeys, almost their first ones as well. Why did Jane's father choose a chimp? In 1935, a baby chimpanzee had been born at the London Zoo. Jane's parents lived in London and followed the news about the little chimp named Jubilee. Why was it such a big event? Before then, all the zoo's chimps had been born in the wild in Africa. Jane's toy chimp was named Jubilee too. It played music when Jane squeezed its belly. Because Jubilee was so real looking, some people thought that the chimp was too scary for a baby girl. Jubilee might give little Jane bad dreams, but they were wrong. Jane loved Jubilee and took the toy wherever she went. As a young child, Jane Goodall had no idea that she would spend most of her life among chimpanzees, real, live chimpanzees. But that's what she did. The chimps that Jane came to know did not live in a zoo. They roamed free in the forests of eastern Africa. Over time, the chimps began to treat Jane like just another chimp, a tall, funny-looking white chimp. Because the chimps accepted her, Jane Goodall was able to learn more about these amazing animals than anyone had before. She saw how chimp mothers cared for their babies. She saw how chimps worked and played together. She learned how chimps showed happiness, fear, anger, and sadness. Most important of all, Jane Goodall proved to the world how alike humans and chimpanzees are. As far as the way they care for one another, they are so much alike. And what a shame that this is the information that we have for nurturing, and the rest of our science is done by a bunch of ding-dong men who look at life through some microscope and with some dull, I don't even know, just a dullness about them. Not like this, full of life and passion and reality, right? Or I'll go in a lab and I'll just have a certain dullness about me. Myopic view of everything. Most important of all, Jane Goodall said that. As for Jubilee, the toy chimp, Jane never gave it away. To this day, Jubilee sits on a dresser in the house where Jane lives. I was reading this. Are chimpanzees monkeys? Sometimes I put mints in my mouth. Are chimpanzees monkeys? No. Most little children will look at a picture of a chimpanzee and say it's a monkey. But chimps are not monkeys. Chimps are apes. So are gorillas and orangutans. Apes do not have tails. Oh. I did not know that. And now, of course, some monkeys have tails. I would have said all monkeys have tails. I would not. Well, all monkeys do have tails. Apes don't. Apes do not have tails. Almost all kinds of monkeys do. Apes have strong arms and can swing from tree branch to tree branch. Most monkeys can't do this. They run along the tops of branches. Apes' skeletons look very much like human skeletons. Monkey skeletons look much more like the skeletons of dogs, cats, and other small mammals. Monkeys, apes, and humans all belong to the animal group called primates. Apes are our closest relatives in the animal kingdom. Chapter 1, Animal Lover. Jane Goodall was born on April 3rd, 1934 in London, England. London is one of the world's greatest cities. Jane, however, was far happier in the country. She liked being outdoors, exploring nature. Her family moved outside the city to a house with a yard. What interested her most were animals, all kinds of animals. Learning about them in books was interesting, but facts from books were not enough for Jane. Jane wanted to find out about animals by watching them herself. What a great way to learn. One time, she dug up some earthworms. She came home and put them under her pillow. Jane wanted to go to sleep with them. Her mother explained that the worms needed to be in their own homes. Little Jane was disappointed, but returned the worms to the garden. That's gross. Jane, really? Oh my gosh, what's the matter with you? That's my opinion. But good for her, right? I mean, you know, it makes you think about things like being an archaeologist. It does to me. Like, you go there and you actually do it, right? Or a geologist, where you actually are digging up the rocks and the stones. You're doing it. That's so interesting to me. When she was about 5, Jane was curious to see how chickens laid eggs. In the backyard at her grandmother's house was a chicken coop. Here was Jane's chance to watch an egg get laid. She had Jubilee with her. She crept into the empty chicken coop. Then she waited for a hen to arrive. Jane stayed so still that the hen didn't notice her. Hour after hour went by. Jane kept waiting and watching. Finally, after 5 hours, Jane saw what she had hoped for. Out popped an egg from underneath the chicken. Jane was excited. Her family, however, was scared. Her mother had called the police to report that Jane was missing. But when Jane returned to the house, she did not get a scolding. Her mother understood that Jane was not being naughty. She needed to learn about the natural world in her own special way. That was nice of Jane's mom, huh? Let's move this a little bit closer. How about that? There we go. Jane's mother was called Vanny. She wrote novels. Wow. Jane's father, Mortimer, was an engineer who later became a race car driver. Wow. That's pretty interesting. On Jane's 4th birthday, her sister Judy was born. Imagine sharing the same birthday as your sister or brother. Pretty cool. The Goodall girls were young when World War II broke out in 1939. Adolf Hitler was a Nazi leader of Germany and Austria. He was trying to seize control of all of Europe, including England. He wanted to be like the king of all that area, basically. Right before the war, Jane's family was living in France. Her father was racing cars there. However, once the war started, the family returned to England. Mortimer joined the British Army in the fight against the Nazis. Vanny and her 2 young daughters moved in with Vanny's mother, who lived in the seaside town of Bournemouth. A little more than 100 miles from London, Bournemouth was safer than living in London, which the Germans started bombing in September of 1940. Wow. That's so interesting, isn't it? So there you can see England there, which is basically north of France, almost directly north. I didn't realize it was. I would have said that it was west, but I would not have said it was that north. And look at Spain there too. So England is actually east of Spain. How interesting. I've been to Spain. That was a wonderful place to be and visit. The Blitzkrieg. And German Blitzkrieg means lightning war. The term is used for surprise attacks from the air. On September 7th, 1940, German planes flew over London and dropped bombs on the city. The attacks lasted for more than 8 months. It was a frightening time. Often the raids happened at night. Often there was little or no warning before the bombing started. People would run and hide underground in subway stations. When the bombing stopped, they'd return to the streets and see rubble where buildings had stood only minutes before. About 30,000 people died because of the bombings. Another 50,000 were injured. Even so, the British never surrendered to the Germans. They came close though. Boy, did they. The war ended in Europe in the spring of 1945 with Germans' defeat. The Goodall's first home in London remained standing. However, more than 1 million buildings had been destroyed. It took decades to rebuild London. How sad. There's a picture. That's a pretty good picture, I think, of the Blitzkrieg, even though it's just a black and white pen and ink kind of drawing. It's good. In 1943, Vanny and her daughter moved into their own home in Bournemouth. Jane spent the rest of her childhood there. Jane was 8 at the time. By then, Mortimer was living apart from his wife and daughters. Jane was most happy when she was outdoors with a neighborhood dog named Rusty. She started a nature club with her sister and 2 friends. Jane had lots of rules for the club. Sounds like Jane was kind of bossy, but kind of get where you're going. Jane, of course, was the leader. Members had to be able to identify all sorts of different animals. Each member had a code name. The club was fun and interesting, but Jane's friends thought sometimes she was too bossy. Jane also loved reading books about animals. The story of Dr. Dolittle by Hugh Lofting was one of her favorites. Dr. Dolittle went to Africa and was able to talk to wild animals. Jane understood that she would never be able to carry on a conversation with a tiger or giraffe or monkey, but she knew it was possible to live in Africa close to wild animals. By the time she was 10, she had decided that's exactly what she was going to do with her life. That's amazing to me. Did you know what you wanted to do at 10? Or do you know what you want to do at a young age? Because I did not. I was 30. 27. Maybe 27, something like that, when I decided. But I was sure, and I was right. So that's something. By 1952, Jane's parents were divorced. She didn't ever lose touch with her father, but she was never close to him the way she was with Vanny, her mom. Tarzan, the jungle hero. Tarzan, a human raised by apes in the African jungle, was a hero of best-selling novels by Edgar Rice Burroughs. The first book, Tarzan of the Apes, was published in 1914. The first Tarzan movie appeared in 1918, before there were talkies. Talkies are talking movies. Since then, there have been almost 90 movies made about the adventures of Tarzan. The most popular ones came out in the 1930s and 1940s. They starred Johnny Weissmuller, a former Olympic swimmer. Tarzan's best friend was a chimp named Cheetah, and his girlfriend was named Jane. Jane Goodall has said that Tarzan movies made a big impression on her. Tarzan was living her dream life, and with Jane. Jane was graduating from high school. Although she had been a very good student, there was not enough money for college. So Jane moved to London and took a job as a secretary. The city was a thrilling place to live. However, Jane told her mother and grandmother that her work was dull. It made her miserable. Through a friend, she found a job at a company that made documentary films. That was much more interesting. Yeah, of course it was, for sure. Still, Jane never stopped dreaming of Africa, to live there and find work studying animals in their natural homes. The odds were not in Jane's favor. First of all, in the 1950s, scientists studied animals in zoos or labs, not in the wild. Animal scientists had years of education. Jane Goodall had no college degree. And at the time, even women with degrees were limited in their career choices. Most became teachers or went into nursing. Like me, even later on, right? Teaching. So how would Jane find a way to live the life she longed for? Okay, we will continue this story, Who is Jane Goodall, tomorrow with chapter number 2. So that first chapter kind of thing, Who is Jane Goodall, that's kind of like a preface is what it was, just to kind of give you a little background. And then chapter 1 was Animal Lover. And then chapter 2 is An Invitation. So we'll see. I would love to make documentaries, and better documentaries than they have out there, because those are some kind of crappy documentaries. But we will continue with our story on Jane Goodall. This is Dr. Annette Feravich, and I am the teacher. And we are here in the classroom, and specifically the reading room. I will see you tomorrow. Remember, we're here at 1:45 on Wednesdays after our spiritual classroom. Our spiritual classroom ends at 1:30. We come 15 minutes later on Wednesdays. All right? Because we have no philosophical classroom. Thank you for being here, and I will see you tomorrow, I hope. Thanks.